Hey folks, LA Little here with TA Today. Today is the 20th of January. Trump's just got inaugurated. And the question I have is the MAG's stocks, right? The Magnificent Seven, are they going to continue to outperform as they have in the past? And when I look at these guys, their outperformance has been fairly significant. Let's pop up this chart here. This is what it looks like over the last year. You can see this is the Magnificent Seven here. This is the S&P 500. So the S&P, as you know, tacked on some pretty good gains over the last year, but you know, when you compare it to the MAG, big difference. And the question is will that continue? So let's take a look at the charts here and see what we think. We'll start with the Magnificent Seven itself. MAGS is the symbol that's been created for it. And you know, if we go out on the long term here, you had a big spike up, big volume, right? That spike there could be a top, right? Because of just the way it looks, right? You get a big volume, you go up, you come back down, you kind of live this hanging man. We'll see. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, it just could. If you go over and look at the weekly and you try to make sense of it, you know, over here on the weekly, what I see is these volume tails the way they are here is that you went up, over, back under, had more volume, but you left it with greater volume right at the top. So that means it can go back up there and test it again. And finally, if we move over to the daily, over here you can kind of see this down sloping trend that's been in effect. You know, you got a high here, a high there, and a high there, and so far it's kind of going this way, right? Now there are folks that will try to draw these parallel lines and tell you that, you know, well, there's a lot of different interpretations the way those work, but essentially they're going to say it breaks out of one side or the other, it's going to continue. Well, that may or may not be true. What I can see from this is that we've actually got a sideways trend. We're going to have to break another swing point low, which is down here, to go bearish. That would also be a break of this retest region, which, by the way, hasn't been tested, and which typically, even though it's a narrow one, which typically should get bought with a very high percentage the very first time it comes back and tested. Now, if we go to the weekly, you've got a breakout over here, but this one actually was tested, if I remember right, 496. And no, actually it wasn't either. So that one also hasn't been tested. And so you got a lot of action out here that says that if this thing comes back, it's going to get bought. It should get bought here the first time. Let's say it does and regenerates and still comes back down and gets into this area, should get bought again. So that's the setup there. If we go out here, of course this hasn't been trading long enough to have a long-term trend, but it's bullish and sideways across the board here, bullish on the longer term time frames with the BTI, bearish on the short term time frame. So market's been drifting lower, this has been drifting lower as well, and so all of that seems reasonable. Let's go into the individual stocks. So, you know, just looking at this, I should say I don't see anything here that tells me it's a top. The only thing that would give me concern is if this ends up being the top, and we'll know that right when these things fail. So you come down, you'll probably get a bounce, maybe it comes back and breaks it again. It comes into this one, you most likely will get a bounce, maybe that rolls back over and you fail again, and eventually that ends up being the top. Let's look at the individuals here. Well, I'm just going to go straight down the list. Apple to start with. If I look at Apple, Apple's come back hard, right, from what is that, 260 down to 230, so pretty good retrace. You're back into a retest region on the weekly. That more than likely should get bought. 237 and 16, it was tested, so it was a second test. So in this particular case, you had a test there, and now you're testing the second time. Second time, your odds are not nearly as good, and so that swing point low could get broken. If you go out to the long-term time frame, this thing's extremely strong, so it could come all the way back to 170 and still be fine. If you look at it here, you're not that extended yet. Here, and you just started the bearish. And over here, there's some potentials, but you do have some confirmed stuff, right? These things are actually in play, and there's your targets. And so Apple, even though it's on a momentary weakness is what I like to call it, I think that eventually it gets bought again. Amazon. Amazon been much stronger. Big strong strong moves here. A little bit of a retrace, and now it's popping back up. A lot of folks will talk about a flag, right? You get a flag here, and that flag is a little bit like this, but it looks strong. Nothing wrong with any of these numbers. The only issue here is that you're kind of extended on the short-term time frame, which means you need to break a swing point low, which would mean this needs to break. Will it happen now? I don't know. Maybe you'll get a swing point low here first and you'll break it and then come back, which would make more sense because that'd be a retest regen here the first time around. Looks strong. So Apple looks okay, Amazon looks strong. Google. Now Google was the weak child before, but that one changed. It has picked up its game. Here's a retest regen it's doing now on the weekly and trying to regenerate higher. Actually is regenerating higher. And if we look over here, no issues there. This looks strong. Let's go to the next one, which is Meta. Now Meta, to me, looks like a stock that's really starting to struggle. Of course, it has the benefit of having gone a tremendous amount in a period of 2 years. So, if it were to roll over and struggle, that would make a lot of sense given the extension that it's already had. And what I mean by that is, look at your bullish, 90%. That should set back. It should break a swing point low, and if it does, it's probably going to set up a decent buying opportunity. So if there's one that should come back or has the risk of coming back harder, Meta is one that should come back some. Microsoft's been probably the weakest one, and you can see out here it's just sideways extension. If I try to draw that in, it looks like most of the action has been in this range, so it's basically just ranging. I don't see anything special here. Yeah, the only thing is it's fairly extended. Long-term trend has been going up for a long time, and it just looks like a range so far. And you do have one ABCD in play, which is on long-term 309, C point 517. So maybe it gets another 50 points before it's over. NVDA, this has been the poster child. Still struggling here at this particular point in time. You had a high here, had a high volume on it, right? Went up and tested it, had less volume, slightly less volume. Led to another retrace. But if you look at it out here on the long term, or actually on the weekly, this is just a big range that's been going on. You can draw it in over here, right? You've got this big range that's been going on. It's still going on. The only issue here, extremely, extreme situation in the long-term time frame. Everything else, it's not extended in any form. So, could this continue to work lower? It could. I mean, on the retest regen, if I draw in the low end of it, you're at 125. So, you'd rather see it not break that, because if it does, then it's going to target this low. But even if it does, given the long term and how strong this thing has been, who would care, right? Maybe it just builds out sideways range for a while. Still strong stock. Tesla. Now this has been one of the big beneficiaries of the Trump election. You can see it over here. Went up and tested that high. There's the high. Volume on that compared to volume back here. no comparison. This thing's going higher. Look at it here. It's just kind of flagging, if you will. It doesn't look bad here. It's not extended. A little extended on the daily. That needs a reset. That would be here if it is going to. That would just give you a retest regen off of these two, and that would be a buying opportunity in there at the 360, 350 area. Swing point low here, 348. So maybe you get a reset of it as well, which would be fine. This stock's going higher. It's just a question of, you know, how fast does it go? It can go fast, or it could mill around for a while. And I think that depends on the market. And a lot of the market depends on the interest rates. And so they're all tied together. MAG still looks strong. Do they look like they're going to outperform like they have before? Are they going to do this? Probably not. I think they're going to settle down a bit, but they're still probably going to outperform both NDX and the S&P 500. That's the way it looks from my point of view. I still like these stocks. I still think that they're bullish overall, and until that changes, that's going to support the general market. That's it for this time. Have a great one. Stay safe. You want to subscribe, hit the like. I would appreciate it. If you want to take in ask comments or add to comments, that's also interesting. I would love to chat with you about anything you got. Have a great one.